Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Nikki, do you remember what we're talking about today?
I was just going to do the same joke.
You can't do the joke. It was my conversational turn.
Dang. No, I don't remember, Pete, but I did remember to show up.
Cheap podcast humor in the morning. That's what we are. We are thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be talking about memory again. We've got our fantastic returning guest and friend of the show, Daniella Karidi, here, and we're going to dig into it. Before we get into today's episode, though, if this show has ever helped you understand your brain just a little bit better, or made you feel a little less alone in all of it, we just want you to know that there is a place you can go deeper. It's our Patreon community. This is where real conversation happens. There's more connection, there's more support. It is a group of people who genuinely get what it means to navigate life with an ADHD brain. There is no pressure to show up perfectly. You just show up however it works for you. All you have to do is visit patreon.com/theADHDpodcast to learn more and join us. What do you get? You get to watch this show as it's recording live. You get access to our Discord server and all of the member-only channels that are there. There are a lot of people in our Discord server who are living their best life with ADHD, and we'd like to introduce you to them and let you meet your community. If you're not quite ready for all of that, you can always find us at takecontroladhd.com, connect with us on socials, join the public Discord community, or sign up for our weekly email. We'd love to have you wherever you land. Memory is one of the most loaded topics in the ADHD experience because of what we make it mean about us. Today, we're opening a new series on ADHD and aging, and we're starting where it gets personal. The stories we tell ourselves about what we can't remember and how those stories compound over a lifetime. Joining us is Dr. Daniella Karidi, founder of ADHD Time, board member of CHAD Greater Los Angeles, and a Ph.D. from Northwestern with a research focus on, you guessed it, memory and ADHD. Daniella coaches people through major life transitions, and she's here to help us untangle what's ADHD, what's hormonal, what's just getting older, and how to stop treating forgetting like moral failure. Daniella, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so honored to talk about this topic.
It seems like it's an important topic to you. And I just to get people caught up. I mean, you've been here before, we've talked about memory before, but I would really love to hear from you what your story is on how you landed on this fascination to devote a career to studying and learning about humans and their memories.
Well, as typical to a lot of people, I got hyper-focused on something. So what happened was actually in third grade, I told people that I'm going to be an academic researcher and I'm going to help people learn better and read better. And I was very motivated. As I continued in my career, I got an undergraduate education and special education in psychology from Tel Aviv University. And then I continued to get a master's in diagnosing learning disabilities. But being severely dyslexic, I struggled in being able to help people diagnose their dyslexia. It was kind of the blind leading the hearing impaired. It was really challenging. And I realized that I want to become a researcher before I want to kind of go back to diagnosing. So I switched to the other side of the fence and I flew to the United States to Northwestern University. And my original focus was going to be about speed of reading or speed of listening and audio processing disorders. Because I don't know how quick you guys listen to audiobooks, but I love my audiobooks very, very quick, like 1.7 or 2, or some books even 2.2.
2.5 right here. I'm a 2.5 all day.
It helps my brain process. And I was like, wait, if it's doing that for me, I was really curious. Maybe it's something special for neurodivergent brains. I kept on coming late to my lab meetings. I kept on forgetting stuff. And my professor turned around to me and said, that speed of reading thing is really interesting, but I'm curious about why you keep on forgetting to come to our meetings and why you're not remembering. Is this a you thing or an ADHD thing? And I looked at him and I'm like, oh no, and this is 2006. And that's when I got into memory. I wanted to see that I'm not alone, that me forgetting these things that are crazy important for me are not because of a personality default, and the more I talked with ADHDers, I interviewed people first, and then I did a scientific tool, and then I did research. I found out that I'm definitely not alone, that having memory challenges is very common to ADHDers. They just don't look like memory challenges of someone that is impaired from a car accident or from a cancer or from aging. So what I found was that our memory challenges are significantly different than memory challenges of the populations that have been studied most often.
I mean, the entire thing is fascinating. The entire experience of how, especially as you bring up that memory issues in ADHD just don't look like memories that result from some sort of trauma. And I think that probably goes toward explaining why sometimes it feels like forgetting is a character flaw when you're living with ADHD, because I guess we can't trace it back to any one event.
Yes. And I'm going to add two important things that people don't totally understand. One is that forgetfulness is the default of the system. So our systems are not built to retain everything. If we would be retaining all the information we're exposed to, we kind of would have exploded. There's some people in mental institutes actually that suffer from a medical condition of remembering everything. There are things we don't want to remember. There are things that we don't need to remember. We are designed to compress information and keep it in a way that is easier to use to survive. Our brain does that. When I ask you, oh, can you remember what you ate for dinner on May 12, 1999? Or if you are alive, okay? I'm just randomly no, but if I ask you maybe what you ate at your wedding or what you ate at that special restaurant or that is a memory that you might be able to recall. Why won't you remember a specific dinner on a random day? Because our brain compresses all those dinners into a scheme, into like a story of what is a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We do that because it's good for our survival. So forgetting is the default of the system. And we have to overwrite that default in order to remember stuff. That requires energy, time, effort. We think as people that we will default remember. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, someone will tell us and we will remember. But there's something that has to happen actively for us to remember things. And the challenge with ADHD is that sometimes we actively do that. And sometimes the system doesn't actively. The inconsistency is where we struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things that I think just saying over and over that forgetting is the default. That is like a worldview changing statement, because we've spent years being told that we're not, that we're just not doing enough. We're not trying hard enough, that if we cared about whatever it is that's in front of us, we would remember for sure, right? That by the time we're adults, it feels like that shame around forgetfulness is so deeply baked in that forgetting biologically, neurologically, forgetting is the default is a grand awakening for which we should have much more forgiveness for the years that we've spent being told not to.
And this is like when you tell someone, okay, look harder.
Yeah.
Looking is a skill that we cannot activate harder strength. We look or we don't look. Okay.
Yeah.
There is no look harder. Okay. That is not a muscle we can when we tell someone remember more, what are we exactly telling them?
Right.
How we need to be able to say the right words. Like instead of look harder, we say pay attention. Or let's reduce distractibility. Those are the words we can use when we want someone to look harder. So what should we be saying to ourselves and to others when we want them to not forget or remember? We should be using a different kind of language depending on what we're trying to remember and what we're trying not to forget. So that was my second important point. And if it's the second thing that anyone can take from here, those are the two things I want people to take. Forgetfulness is the default of the system, and memory and forgetting is not one construct. So there's different types of memory. There's short-term, long-term, episodic, biographical. There's like, the list is never ending of how we can divide memory. We can also do the same thing for forgetfulness. There's forgetfulness that happened because we were distracted to the instruction. There was forgetfulness that happened because we were overwhelmed. There was forgetfulness because our system was in anxiety mode. There's a variety of types of forgetfulness. It's not one thing. And if we treat ourselves with the same, like, oh my God, we're terrible people. We forgot Debbie's birthday. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying, of course we forgot Debbie's birthday. We're in the middle of an anxiety stage. We're in a loop of this. This is what's going on in our brain. We don't do that. We automatically put the "we are terrible people" language on ourselves.
Yes.
It's our fault.
Now, Debbie, if she was a good friend, will be able to understand if we apologize, take ownership. So I want to make sure that everyone that hears this doesn't think that I'm giving them a card to forget about Debbie's birthday, right?
Yeah.
We're living in a social environment. Forgetting only counts if other people remember.
True. Because they may forget too. And so we're all in the same boat.
I remember the first year both my parents forgot their own anniversary. You're absolutely right. It was a thing to laugh about. But if my dad forgot and my mom didn't, there was trouble.
My dad's favorite saying used to be, the problem is not what I forget, but what my wife remembers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is about the social cost of forgetfulness. So if you forget to report to an important piece of information to your boss, there'll be you could get fired. There's a very financial cost. If you forget to pay your taxes, another heavy financial cost. If you forget to tell someone that you really appreciate, thank you. Okay. Again, that could be a social cost. We pay for forgetting, but we also pay for remembering sometimes. Like, I have to tell you that I remember someone that insulted me by accident. Okay. I can't let go. Okay. Remembering also sometimes has a cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, remembering the cost, I think for us most practically is the RSD of remembering, right? The not being able to let go of that feeling of rejection. I wish forgetting was the default in that scenario.
So that is a great example about how much we don't control the mechanisms. So we think a lot about the system as, oh my God, I didn't do something. And there is an element we can talk about some strategies to increase remembering, to reduce forgetfulness, but we're not going to create a system that's perfect. I forgot. So, okay. I got into this area, and I got to attend a conference in Amsterdam that focused on prospective memory, which is how we remember to do things in the future, which is my favorite topic. So it's remembering to take your meds at night, remembering to send an email later, remembering to say hello when you see me at a conference, remembering the future. Us ADHDers struggle more in remembering the future than remembering the past. That's why when I ask you, the phone number of your pizza place from you were a kid, you might remember that, but you might forget to do something important today. Okay. So we're better at remembering the past than remembering the future. So I forgot, going to this important conference, I forgot to bring the diggity-dooey thing that I needed to connect my computer to the big screen in Amsterdam, which is a different country, I don't know how many notes I put. I don't know how many reminders. I don't know how many things. I can't tell you how important this presentation was to me. It was 1,000 people. I was prepared and dressed and ready and standing in front of the audience and could not access my slides. Had to wait until someone in the audience that had a cable found their cable, gave it to me, and we solved the problem. I could have stood there and said, oh my God, I am so stupid for forgetting something so important. And my first reaction was that. But my second reaction was, this was so anxiety invoking event. I am shocked I remembered to get dressed this morning. I am proud that I'm wearing shoes that match. I am really proud that I made it to the right place, in the right location, in the right time. I am not late. I have my water. I forgot an element, a critical element. Solve the problem, let's keep on going. Now I have a story about forgetfulness to tell the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. To
Did
an audience about forgetfulness
Yeah.
and
Did
memory,
I
which is
remember to
interesting
bring the
too.
Dewey thingy to the next conference? No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
did not
okay.
remember to bring the Dewey thingy to the next conference. Okay. But I did check the day before and ran and bought one. So yes, a lesson has learned. I checked the day before. I was already in that country. It was too late. I had to go buy one. Paid the ADHD tax by having to spend time and money and run and get it. But this time, not only did I laugh about it, okay, and made it funny, that was the last time. I now have a Dewey thingy like that, even though I've never needed it again, okay, in my
You
travel
have it.
space, okay?
Yeah.
So why am I telling you this story? A, to show you that even the most expert in memory can forget. That's one lesson. The other lesson is that even if we have a forgetful event, it doesn't guarantee that we will remember the next time. We have this illusion that we learn from our mistakes. And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Mistake doesn't guarantee that we will learn from it. And we need to understand that as human beings, we have limited capacities. And that event was a big on my resources. I had to travel internationally. I just moved countries. This was my biggest presentation for my first really big presentation. So sure, I'm actually amazed that I only forgot one thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the language shift I wish we could all do. Shift from blame, guilt, respond to amazement on our achievements. Shift to understanding that there's limitations to this system. Shift from blaming game to learning game.
Which immediately repositions your entire sort of worldview to one of greater forgiveness when you see other people forget for the same reasons, right? I mean, I think that's just a mood of kindness. I want to transition a little bit to our aging conversation because this is a piece that I think we are, we're all obviously dealing with. It is the gift we all inherit. And I want to talk about people who've maybe managed to keep their ADHD under control through routine and structure, and then something changes. What happens when scaffolding disappears, when we've had careers, we've had school schedules and kids, all these externalities that help us achieve a sort of cognitive lift that we might otherwise be incapable of handling. At some point, whatever looked like managed ADHD starts to look like something different as we age. I'd like to have you position us for this conversation.
I'm going to position this and I'm going to clarify one thing first. Let's assume that we're talking about normal aging and not including neurocognition decline, or we're not going to include dementia and Alzheimer for a second in this conversations. Okay. So we're talking about an ADHDer that, was a mom and had a full-time job and cared for kids, or a solo entrepreneur, or, someone that worked in the office and is now switching to or retirement or part-time or shifting gears, no longer driving kids. They're all at college. Things have changed. Okay. And the load has changed. And now the biggest problem I hear is that the structures that you used are not adaptive anymore. And us ADHDers, we're not good at shifting strategies. So I find 3 common issues that happen with my clients. One is I find this loss of sense of time and day. They tell me the worst part of retirement is that there's never a day off. There's no Saturday, Sunday difference. Friday is the same as Saturday. And we lose some of the coping mechanisms that we had. And I hear that things that used to be not challenging, like going to the park on a Saturday, suddenly becomes really challenging because theoretically I can go to the park any day now. So I don't go at all. Because theoretically I can do it anytime. So I don't do it.
Which totally makes sense because it's something you can do later.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's one type of challenge. The other type of challenge is I hear people that are trying to do the opposite. Suddenly they're trying to do everything. We are crafting in the morning. Then we're going to the grandchildren. And then we're going to the store. And then we're going to play tennis. And then we're playing bridge. And then we're playing canasta. And then they're more exhausted and more busy than they were when they were working. And their ADHD symptoms now go wacko because they're overcompensating and overdoing. Okay. And not giving themselves the time to recover that they used to have because they had some structure. So those are the ones that are trying to go on a cruise, come back, watch the grandchildren the next day, and fly to Hawaii 3 days later. Like kind of like so they're overscheduling, overdoing, and they're going to have that overwhelm that we hear from that overworked solo entrepreneur. But they're in retirement. And then I have the third type where they bounce between they have not planned, communicated, configured their retirement, or what we call the gold stage of their life, with their spouse or partner. And they're spending 90% of their energy and time negotiating how this time is going to look. Because maybe their partner is the bouncer, but they're the one to stay at home and do nothing. And now, and before, when they were working, their partnership worked, their relationships worked, their communication worked, their memory was suddenly the spouse is going crazy from reminding him 60 million things because before his assistant did some of that. Okay. So I've been having divorces happening. Okay. And relationships falling apart. And sometimes it's not between the spouse. Sometimes it's the kids and the parents that had a great relationship and suddenly they got, or your best friend or your partner that you worked together for 20 years. Now you can't communicate with each other because you did not have a real conversation about what's going on and how you're going to leave this period of your life.
That's so interesting. And it makes me think that my husband and I need to talk about retirement.
Yeah. I was just thinking the exact same thing.
Because I'm more of an introvert and he's an extrovert.
Yeah.
So I can see us having some issues.
Think about all the years and times that you plan your career. You invest so much in figuring out the good match and doing what you like and being passionate about it and successful. And when we think about our retirement, we don't invest that energy. We don't think about how our retirement will be successful and fun and like sit on our strengths. And instead of that, we kind of just glide into it. And sometimes what we thought in our 20s, like, oh my God, I'm going to travel. Like I had a client that his dream was to travel. Okay. His wife was on board. That part, let's check that part. His memory, no medical conditions, he could be able to travel. He just went on a month trip, came back and said, oh my shit, I don't like this.
But we don't have the same energy as we did when we were in our 20s.
But it's not only that. He never did a long month trip in his life. He always went for 3 days here, 5 days, whatever his work allowed. And he had this illusion that, switching hotels and doing all these experiences and going from place to place will be so exciting. When he said, you know what? I'm going to just buy a vacation house in the mountains and go fishing and go hiking in that little area. I don't need to be changing location. I don't need to. And we got to that, we had to work. There was a lot of conversations to find the right, where the golden path is. But I think I took us a little bit on a side quest because you asked about memory and I kind of switched us to a really important topic I'm passionate about. Do you want to go back to memory?
Believe me, I was about to catch you because I want to come back to what happens when the scaffolding falls away. And it sounds like maybe we forget that we don't like to travel is one of those things that we forget.
So what happens when scaffolding is falling is that we need to rebuild it and we need to change it and we need to adjust to our new surroundings, our new life. Kind of like if you didn't have kids and suddenly you have kids and there's changes that have to happen. When the kids leave the house, you have to change again. And that's not easy.
There's like a proactive piece that we forget. I think this goes into what we're talking about with retirement, that if you don't think proactively about retirement as the next big life transition, just like, as you say, kids or new jobs or whatever, then that's when it feels like the scaffolding completely collapses. But but if you are proactive, and I guess what does that being proactive look like when you're transitioning from something with heavy scaffolding to something where you have to bring your own?
And not only that you have to bring your own, you have to have a lot of metacognition and awareness. So I don't know about, but one of the common things I have with my clients, they talk about, my memory was so good, now I can't remember anything. And I'm like, well, you came to this meeting, you're wearing your clothes, you ate, you hopefully brushed your teeth, you remembered something. Let's shift the language first. Yes, the decline is actually not in our memory itself. The decline is in our capacity to store those memories and retrieve them. So let's say I would tell you that we're going to sit now and we're going to practice this list of 5 words. And we're going to build a palace, and we're going to try to remember it, and we're going to bring a thing, and we're going to put effort in it, and I'm going to test you next week. So I put importance, I put a reason, I put a strategy, I put time into it. There is a high likelihood that you will remember those 5 words. Okay. But if I just turn to you and say, hey, remember to buy, and I spit at you 5 things, I didn't tell you to pay attention, I didn't put a strategy, there is a higher chance that you will not remember. In a typical day, in a 2-hour work, you are doing 550 shifts between the screen and the brain, between remembering, you're shifting 550 times. That
In
is
an
a
hour?
lot. 2 hours.
2 hours.
In his 2 hours of working in front of a computer, you're
Well,
shifting about
crazy.
550 times.
That's disappointing.
So now that
That's a lot. Mm-hmm.
now that you're aging, your capacity to shift is slower and reduced. But if you're going to try to sit and plan your vacation in front of that screen for 2 hours, and you're still shifting, maybe you're not shifting 550 because maybe it's a little less challenging. So maybe you're only shifting 300 times or 200 times. But now also your capacity is reduced and your speed is reduced. So you're loading more your working memory. What is your working memory? Your working memory is this. It's a short term, which it's between 0 and a minute. If you passed a minute, it's no longer in your working memory, people. This is already in your long term. So this is very short. And this is where we do manipulations. This is where we do decision making. So if I show you a blue tie and a green tie and I tell you choose between them, that decision making is happening in your working memory.
Mm.
When you shift quickly like that, looking at a computer screen, trying to make decisions, you're using a lot of working memory. And we know 2 things about our working, 3 things. We know 3 things about working memory. 1, ADHDers consistently have worse working memory than neurotypicals. Even people that know how to practice their working memory, that spent 4 years in a lab doing the exercises every day, still have bad working memory compared to neurotypicals. 2, our working memory capacity is very short term, 0 to a minute. So if I showed you those 2 ties and you turned around and now looking at something else and go back and you have to choose, if you're not looking at the ties again, you're already retrieving it from your long-term memory. And that requires more resources and more energy. And again, your aging brain struggles with limited resources and limited energy. So we need to support our working memory. And that's the 3rd thing. We need to write things more down. We need to assume that our working memory is not working. That word working memory is a default, it's like ADHD. It's a terrible name. It's a terrible name.
Yeah, especially as you get older, I'm struggling with putting the example of working memory and the ties in place. I've never considered that I was looking, like if I turn around to look at the ties again, that's coming from long-term memory. For me, the load always feels like, oh, I have to start over with this because I've already lost the thread of these ties. I looked away and now I'm coming back and it's like, it's like brand new.
A few options could have happened. You didn't move it from working memory to long-term memory. You let go of it. You thought it wasn't important, wasn't critical. You were distracted with other things. The other thing is you did move it to long-term memory, but you put it in somewhere you can't find. Okay. You put it in ugly tie category instead of decision-making category or whatever category, or why the fuck am I wearing a tie? Excuse my French. Category. Um, so, so, so again, it could also, so you put, and it could be an active decision of not caring, and it could be just an overwhelm of the system. So it could always be both.
Yeah, yeah. I like that there is a third place called the ugly tie category. It's like the void that you'll never reach again, right? It's just there. You'll never find it. It's okay that it's just sitting there collecting dust.
We think for some reason that our memories are like books in a library. We think that if we put them in a spot, we'll be able to just go and look at that category, use a decimal system, whatever system, and retrieve that memory. When you were at school, half the job of what teachers were doing was teaching you how to put information inside categories and systems that you can retrieve later. And we spent a lot of time at school to do that. Okay. Now, as adults, we kind of think that memories are automatically going to put themselves in those categories. And when you think about let's talk about the Library of Congress. You know, a book can be put in the decimal system in the library under different categories, but it also gets an individual code that you can scan so you can find that book, right? So there's multiple ways to retrieve the book. Also, you might be someone that can remember the way the book looks, or maybe like me, you might catalog the book based on the colors. So all my books are sorted by colors because that's how I remember them. So we could put information in so many different ways in our brain. When we only use one way, we reduce the likelihood of remembering. The Library of Congress could just stick to the decimal system and the Dewey system, and be done with it, right?
Yeah.
But they don't. They put also a QR code. They scan it. They scan the book now. They're like, oh, we're going to do multiple ways. And just so you know, they are doomsday believers. Every book gets a paper catalog, still gets a little paper thing that gets put in a
card catalog
filing system, okay? Because they're afraid of their whole computer system crashing.
Yeah. As they should
Anxiety, depression, as they should be, yes. But anxiety, depression, lack of sleep, taking antibiotics, hormones, aging, all are like our computer's doomsday. And that's just a small list of things.
So I have a question, because you have talked a lot about how ADHD, how ADHD impacts memory. What about those other things around aging and women, menopause, and just aging in general? Like, what are the differences there that we need to be looking at?
So let's take now the ADHD out of the equation for 2 seconds of the conversation artificially and talk about an individual that will be naturally aging. Let's assume we're talking about a healthy, we're going to talk about a male and a woman separately for a second. As we age, our systems do a few things. They are slowing down. They are not giving the brain as much energy because we're supposed to be at this point sufficiently learned to survive. So our brain assumed we learned everything we need important to survive. And what we're going to get now is bits of information, not huge new things. That's why it's harder to learn a new language. That's why it's harder to learn a new skill. Now, not impossible. You hear me saying that. Harder, not impossible. Requires more practice. So as we age, our speed of processing is reduced. Our energy capacity is reduced. Also, in some ways, like if you take the metaphor of a computer system, our memory capacity is reduced. But we also get more affected by negative effects. And what I mean is, let's say something really good happened yesterday. Your grandson was born, or you won the lottery, or I don't know, you went to the donut place and they gave you a free donut. Let's go with something really happy, okay?
Okay.
That could also affect our memory because we are now in this happy mode. Our brain is like all wired with this happy energy, with these chemicals. And we are actually not as good at remembering when we're overflowed with chemicals. It could be from happy and it could be from negative.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when we are young, we shake that out of our brain quicker. So if we are exposed to something more traumatic or something more exciting, When we are young, those chemicals, they leave our brain and our body quicker. So that's another side effect of aging. It takes us longer to detox. Like, I hate that word. I didn't say that word. Take it back. But it takes us longer to get things out of our, if it's, we ate something bad with our stomach, we will have a stomach virus longer. We will be sick longer because our immune system is weaker. But we also have the effects of, if we are in anxiety, our brain will recover slower from that anxiety.
That is so interesting.
That's not good news, Daniella.
So what can we do? Now that I gave you that really, really annoying news, what can you do?
What can you do?
Yeah.
Please tell us.
So first thing you can do is aware that it's part of the problem, and give yourself permission to not, like, at the moment of having a big emotion, try to learn something new or try to remember. Like, I just got a conversation with you guys. I'm all excited. I'm all emotional because it was a lot of fun. I am not going to try at this moment to remember a list of 7 groceries. I need to take a note and write that down. I'm going to support my system, understanding that if I'm having big emotions, this is not the time to add another overload thing on my system.
Right.
And those big emotions can be positive and negative.
Right.
And that's true for children too. If you'd work with a child and they're in the middle of a big emotion, that's not the time to teach them a history fact.
No, that makes sense.
Right.
So give yourself the same grace as you're aging. Don't try in the big moments to remember information that you can use a piece of paper to remember.
Yeah.
I just hearing you talk about it just seems like in so many ways, living with ADHD is actually pretty good prep for aging and the things that are happening. Like, these are, everything you're describing is all stuff that I have to do to myself as an accommodation now that I've had to do since I was 29.
So dial it up. Just imagine it a little dialed up. So that's one of the things I say when we talk about the difference between aging without ADHD and with ADHD. With aging without ADHD, you had a skill and you're starting to lose it. With ADHD, you never had the skill. So there we go. We're good.
That's true.
No,
That's
but
true.
I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
What I kind of trying to say is, if you were inconsistent before, your inconsistency might get bigger. So you need to scalpel more. You need to, don't rely. Our memory is not reliable. So when I tell people, write it on a note, they say, oh, but I won't find the note. And I'm like, but you just increase the chances of remembering by, my dad used to also say that 70% of the research that people quote is made up.
Yes.
Any statistics.
True fact.
So I'm going to say, let's assume about 50% increase.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
writing
it.
a
You're
note-
just playing the law of numbers, right? You're just playing probabilities at this point. And that's living with ADHD.
But if you didn't write the note, you're gambling that you won't remember at all.
Yes.
You wrote the note, you're increasing the chances. You wrote the note and took a picture of the note. So now it's in your phone and you have last chance of losing it. That already increased your chances of remembering it. You put the note right here. What I'm trying to say is you put the note point of use, okay?
Yeah.
So I need to call someone from the insurance company about something. Putting the note about the insurance company in my car is not the right spot, even though that's where I remembered it. But putting it next to my phone in the house where my paperwork is makes more sense. There's a higher chance. So putting it where you're going to need it also increases the chances of success. But also, I think that what we need to do when we're talking about memory and aging, which is really important, is to separate natural decline that could be from aging. And we didn't even talk about women yet. I didn't forget that you said it. Natural decline from aging and severe medical conditions like Alzheimer and dementia and cognitive impairments.
Right, because I think that that's a major concern is as soon as you start noticing that you're forgetting things, you're thinking, oh my, what is this? Is this the first sign of dementia? So yes, please talk to us about that.
So the first thing we need to know is that 90% of the doctors you'd go to don't know about ADHD and memory issues. They don't know that your default might have been different than someone else. And that is very sad. So it's really important if you are going to a neurologist, a memory doctor, if you're going to be evaluated for decline in cognition, to tell them that you have ADHD or suspected to have ADHD or have a kid with ADHD, because we know it's very genetic unless your kid is adopted. But we should point that having a family history, even if you were unsymptomatic, is important to tell your caregiver, your doctor, if you're going to be evaluated for memory challenges. Because we need to understand the difference between what was before and what's now. And if your now is different from the typical neurodivergent, is different from a non-neurodivergent person, then we need to understand that we tell that to the person that's going to care for us. Okay. That's going to evaluate us.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did that. We told them. Now we need to understand that the biggest challenge with ADHD, as we said, is the inconsistency. So at the lab, you might suddenly perform very well because it's a new environment. It's exciting. This is where talking about your everyday challenges is really important to the professional. It's not enough to do those tests where they check your memory performance. It's really important to share the type of decline you're talking about. And I will give the example, the difference that I would like to hear. I want to hear that you say, I'm forgetting more, but only in this situation. Then I'm like, well, that sounds more of like the ADHD lost of some support in that situation versus a real, when we're talking about a dementia or Alzheimer, it's kind of not it's not very much situational dependent. I'll give an example. I had someone that came and said, oh my God, I think I'm starting dementia. Every time I play Mahjong all my life, suddenly I'm like struggling with Mahjong. And I'm like, but only in Mahjong? No, I went into a room and I forgot what I was going into a room. And I'm like, well, I do that twice a day. And I was like, but are you doing it more than before? And she's like, oh yeah, significantly more than before. Now I don't even remember when I go back and I ask my spouse, like I go back to ask him, why did I go in the room? I forget to ask him that question. So now, like, obviously there's an increase. So we're looking for a severe, like the severity is very important to separate it. Now there's other tests we can look at. Now we're getting better. Now there's talking about a blood test. Like, I don't know, like this is like, we're talking about some blood tests for Alzheimer. I'm like doing a happy dance here. Okay.
Right.
When we will be able to use some of these tests, it will be able to solve some of these questions of, is it ADHD, normal aging, or we're getting into, but for now, most people, we have to look about the severity of increase, if it's in multiple environments. And then you hear people that say they don't remember that they're forgetting, but everyone around them talking about their forgetfulness. And that most of the time is mostly it, for me, is a red flag and makes me want to think about dementia, Alzheimer, and cognitive impairments.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what we've noticed. Like, I mean, just, in our own family that has had dementia issues, is that you're right. They don't even know that they forgot that they just had the conversation 10 minutes ago. They think they're having it again, or new. Right. They think it's new. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I want to share this experiment that really clicked, like stayed with me. There's an individual that had a brain injury, and she ended up in the hospital with no short-term memory. And I mean, no short-term. You'd see her, she'd say hi to you, nice to meet you. You'd walk out to the room, you'd come back in, she thinks you're a new person. No short-term memory. The researchers noticed that they walked with her from one room into the testing room, and there was this wiggly, weird door that you had to open in a weird way to get into to the lab. And she used it the right way. She succeeded to wiggle the door in this weird way, even though theoretically she can't build short-term memories. And what happens if you can't build short-term? You can't build new long-term. I want to make that clear. If you don't be able, in order for something to get into the long-term, it has to pass through the short-term. It can't skip it. Okay. But usually we just don't remember that short-term. It's too short. It's from 0 to a minute. It goes real quickly. So we met each other, we moved it to the long-term. We meet each other again and we say, oh, I met you before. I can't remember your name, but I met you. Right. So what she was doing, even though we thought she can make zero, like she's been 5 years or 6 years, I can't remember how many years, please forgive the details, in this institute. And the researchers were having a field day learning about long-term and short-term memory deficits. Suddenly they noticed this. And what they decided to do is a very kind of mean experiment. But what they did is when they came and met her, they shaked her hand and they used one of those gag, like, you know, those things where you shake the hand and it gives you a little zit. Like, you know, that, like,
yeah.
Okay, it's not painful. It's just like uncomfortable, right? And they did that. And they did that for like 5 days. And the 6th day when they came to meet her, she didn't want to shake their hand.
But she didn't know why.
She did not know them. She did not recognize them. She was surprised to see them, but her body would not let her reach out and shake their hand.
Fascinating.
Oh, wow.
And they noticed that happened after 6 exposures. Okay. So there, even when the system is totally messed up, there's some motor memory that's happening, something that underlining that's happening. So what do I take from that story? I take from that story that there's a lot of levels of memory that are unconscious. Okay. We're not putting under that traumatic, painful stuff or challenging stuff could stick under layers under our memory without us even being aware that that's happening. And then we can act on it without understanding. Because then they asked her, why aren't you shaking our hand? And she's like, I don't know. And she gave them her hand. She didn't even remember why she doesn't like doing that. Which means when we say our memory is terrible, there are things that we can do by repetition itself. Repetition is so strong and so powerful that even when the system is broken, it keeps on working.
That's really powerful.
We're getting to the point where we really need to start wrapping it up, Daniella. And I know we could talk all day, but I have 2 questions. And the first one is, so we don't forget, you were going to have some comments about women and hormones and menopause and memory.
All that fun stuff,
which I know is probably another episode. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. Yes, it's another episode. And it's a topic that I talk about a lot. And I will say that I'm not a medical doctor. I don't understand enough about hormones to give any recommendations besides tell you that they fuck up our memory. We have so much research. We talk about
Amen to that.
we talk about this negative. I can talk hours about the negative effects, but because I've been so overwhelming with the negative, I want to talk about one positive thing. There was a study that showed that actually at peak times in your cycle, your memory is better than when you're like not in those peak times. Now, can we use that to our benefit? Maybe if we're lucky and we take the SAT, we can choose the date of the SATs and take it in that peak time.
Sure.
Right. But the best example is the French women's soccer team won the first ever time they won I want to say the European Championship, but it might be the world. I'm not a soccer person, but the time they won, every single one of them were on their period.
Oh, interesting.
Oh so to those people that say that our hormones have no effect on our body, they affect us extremely. They affect our muscles, they affect our memory, and then when we lose those hormones, we lose some capabilities, some strategies, some abilities. That fog brain is not your imagination. You that's listening, I'm telling you, you're not imagining it.
Thank you for that, because you're talking to me. So thank you.
That pregnancy effect doesn't go away when the baby comes out. It takes 2 years.
Wow.
2 years for your brain plasticity and your brain to come back and get rid of all that. Now, the lack of sleep might not be helping. Okay, so let's put that in account, that it could be that our brain would recover quicker if we were living in a period where we gave birth and we had, someone else taking care of, everything. And we just had to recover. But our brains and our memory and our neurons and are strongly affected from everything else we're doing. And that includes what we eat, how we sleep, our hormones, and we can't control all of that. We have no time. If I would say here, like, we can talk about tips to eat better. We could talk about controlling our home. I would just tell everyone that it's limitless, the things we can do to help ourselves. But it's also limitless, the things we can do to harm ourselves. And you need to choose the things that you can control because you can't control everything. So yes, if you're able to go to a doctor and get hormones,
do it.
Yes.
Okay.
If you are able to track your cycle and because you can't get hormones because you're not in that period in life or because of different reasons, you don't want to take pills or put pouches or whatever, because there's different solutions if you can't take pills, by the way. Then track your cycle and see how it's affecting your cognition. Don't ignore it. Don't kind of say, like, this is happening to me. Because even though it is happening to your body, you as an adult woman could use this information to do better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting because one of the takeaways I'm having with this conversation, because I am experiencing all of those things that you're saying, is the awareness of where do I forget? And I noticed even just this week, I was going through our task manager for our team. And this was specifically to Pete, there were a few tasks that were on there that I don't remember putting in there or why they were relevant. And where my takeaway from you today is that there's a reason why under every little task in Todoist, there's a description. And what I need to do is I need to put a little note, to just a quick note, not for Pete, but for me even, just to remind myself why this was important. Like,
so the strategy you're talking about is increasing the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is, okay, I am or aging or overwhelmed more than I was before. So my system is hitting a limit, or just less paying attention at that moment when I'm giving the instructions because I'm just so happy to download.
Just
I'm like, I'm
exactly.
I'm
That's
delegating
exactly
mode. So
Yep.
I'm not attending to it. So what you're talking about is one of my favorite strategies. Increase the breadcrumbs, make them bigger, make them more meaningful. You already have a strategy. You just need to make it a bit better.
Yes.
By increasing the breadcrumbs.
All right, done. Pete, you're going to have descriptions on everything.
Nikki, I feel like I've been looking for those all my life.
You probably have, because there's many times where you're like,
I don't know what you mean.
But another way to increase the breadcrumbs is to put expiration dates on your Post-its. So I don't know I put Post-its everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But I put in like this Post-it is like, or the date you write the Post-it or the date you want this Post-it to be expired. Like, that's another breadcrumb you can add to your brain.
That's so good.
Yes.
Because after a certain date, it's no longer relevant. And without that date, I won't know why. I won't need to care why if when I wrote the Post-it, I put the date when it's not relevant anymore.
And then it's easier to get rid of it.
Wow.
Also,
I feel bad for all the people listening who didn't make it to the end of this episode, because that's a winner right there.
These are gold.
That is
nuggets.
A banger.
Yeah.
I'll take that win. I'll take the win.
Take the win.
Yeah.
No, this whole thing, Daniella,
so
you're
good.
always amazing. You have so much to say, and we're just so hungry for this. I think because Nikki and I are both at this point in our lives where we're realizing the time horizon on our memory is starting to be real. It's starting to come into focus on what we need to do.
But it's also this like nice little reassurance too,
Yeah.
that I'm not crazy and I'm not going into dementia,
Yes.
like this is a normal piece of aging and what's happening with hormones and all of that.
Yes. And as much as I was trying to stay in the positive note, I will say that you as a woman with ADHD have a higher statistical risk to have Alzheimer or dementia or mild cognitive disorder. I know you don't want to hear that, but understanding that your risk is higher maybe and more importantly, sharing that information with the people around you, your family, your kids, your neighbor that might be caring for you, may help you get get help earlier. And that is very important.
This was great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Danielle,
you for having me.
tell us what you want people to know about the work you're doing right now. Where can we send folks?
So you can find me at ADHDtime.com. I have a perspective memory course where people can purchase and learn about their own memory. And then at the end of it, they get a session with me one-on-one to work on their strategies. And in addition to that, I'm starting a new YouTube channel. It's called ADHD Time on Air, where they can meet some authors that write all these amazing books. And we talk about ADHD and a bunch of other topics.
Plug, plug, plug. I love it. I love being a secret Easter egg in your plug. Daniella Karidi, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You are a real gem to our community. We really, really appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. Thank you for your time and your attention. Don't forget, if you have something to talk about and to contribute to this conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server. You can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better, patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer and Daniella Karidi, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.